It's happened sometimes. Thankfully, never during talks, but you never know.
You shouldn't have said that.
All right. Well, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Smudtalk number 45. We're talking about God of War, specifically the original Greek versions of God of War. Well, I think the first three is the focus. I don't think we're going to go into too many of the mobile games. That was, wouldn't say eclectic, but harder to play or harder to get a hold of back in the day. And nowadays it's kind of even more difficult. But some people do on the panel, so we might talk about them, we might not. Who knows? We're going to find out. Anyway, we're breaking this down into 2 days. So the first one is the Greek games, and the second one is the Norse games. And hopefully we can get everyone that couldn't make it today for tomorrow. It's always nice to get everyone's perspective on these things. And hopefully we'll have some good gameplay. Where are we playing, actually? Is it the second game we're playing on screen?
It is God of War 2, yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. All right, so we can start off with a question period. We can go into general discussion, why we play these games, why we like them. But I've got a lot of detailed questions, so we can start just free-for-all right now if you guys want. That's totally fine. You want to talk about it? Anything?
Yeah, to start with, God of War definitely made an impact in its own right, and not just in terms of PlayStation and to a greater extent in the gaming industry. It was between God of War 1 and Resident Evil 4, which we also did a talk on, that started the whole QTEs thing, and it's definitely varied by large amounts ever since with the execution, depending on the game we're talking about.
It's with God of War, you see the basics of doing it okay, but it's far from perfect. It has several issues, like in the first game, the spin the analog stick button prompts for killing the Medusa. Those are, for killing units, they are random, except for where it's always one button, like mash the circle to kill the Minotaur to get health. With the multiple ones, they're randomized. With the Medusa, it makes sense where you have where the spinny motions that you are to do are different ones each time. But with I think it's the Cyclops, you get 3 to 4 button prompts of triangle, square, circle, X, and it's always a random combination, and that just makes no sense. That doesn't translate into anything. If it was a different kill animation that had a different code, it would feel like you were doing something. But that's not the case. And that's where later games like Asura's Wrath, they are very keen on using the button that makes sense for the action that you're doing.
Yeah, I think just keep it varied. I think I remember right. It is like you choose to do the little mini game, and you'll get a benefit out of it. Like the enemy will drop health. You can
when you kill the Minotaur with the button prompt, you get health. The Medusa gives you magic.
Yeah, because
other enemies you just kill faster.
You can't just beat them to death when they get that option. It's just like a mini game you can do to keep stuff flowing.
Yeah, the problem is, especially in the first game, the grabbing is absolutely horrible. You run to an enemy and Kratos grabs away from him, and the others then just beat you up.
One thing I liked actually about the QTE, I found them fine in God of War because I never felt like they just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, for that time they were great.
In some games it just feels like cutscene, you're like, oh, cutscene, and suddenly button prompt, and you're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. We have one horrid example on screen, which is the door opener, which is mash button to open door. And that's kind of okay the first time when you open a gate and push it up, and you think, okay, that's this gate. But then it turns out that's every door in the game.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really annoying. I can accept that for in the hardest section in the first game, where you have the rolling boulders, and you have the doors on the side, and one of them is the exit, the other ones are traps. And to have that there, because, oh god, that's difficult, oh god, can I make it, can I open the door in time? But every other door in the game requiring that is just deranged.
I always liked it when I first played. Was that when I just liked how it kept a flow to combat of just doing something different, but also like when you ran into a new enemy or like a new scenario, and you saw that giant circle button show up, and it's like on like a first time playthrough, and it's like, oh man, what am I gonna do to this thing?
Yeah.
And it gets a
I
little
like
samey. It's like
I like how the button prompts, at least the mashing ones against the big enemies, etc., get across the aggressiveness of Kratos. Just like stuff like that, I like. Similar to the in weird example, Metal Gear Solid 4, where you crawl through the tunnel, where you have to mash the button so hard for so long, kind of representing the struggle that Snake has, which that kind of stuff I liked, and God of War did some of it very good.
I think that was like the main improvement to two, not main improvement, but one of the improvements I found in 2 was they added just new enemy types that gave completely new, like the mash, hit the button mini game, spin the analog stick. Like I really like the Minotaur riders in 2, where like you grab them and you do the mini game and then you spin them and pull them on their own weapon. And then I think they were just in 2. It sucked to me anyway.
It's a very arcade style of playing with progression of the character stats, and I wouldn't say levels, but just health and what's the power? Is it magic? Yeah, it's something rage. I can't remember what exactly it was.
Rage against it changes in every game.
It's power up. Yeah, it's the same general idea. In God of War 1, it was Rage of the Gods. Here it's Rage of the Titans, and in the third game it's Rage of Sparta.
And it's also the sword, right? In 3.
In 3, you use the Blade of Olympus for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they did a massive improvement of it's not some. It's definitely at the most Arcadian one, and it's I think the problem people still have is that Rage of the Gods and what's it called in 1 again?
The power up, Rage of the Gods. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's like you fill the meter and then you activate it and you can't turn it off, and then they let you turn it off and on in the second one going forward. So if you just accidentally hit that button and you just waste all of it.
Yep.
All right.
And I forget what it was.
But then there's the fights in 1. The only enemy that I had real fun with was the Egyptian Anubis thing.
The satyrs.
Was that what I called that?
You show up at the end, right?
They had this Egyptian armor and this double-bladed staff. Yeah. Because with them, those were the first enemies where I actually noticed that the block function actually works. Because one big problem that the first game has is you have block and you have dodge. But especially in the beginning, you have mainly enemies that are so big that they have such huge swings. So first they break through block, so you get damage anyway, because they're so big and strong. 2, you can't dodge roll out of the attack because their swing is so big, their impact is AoE, and even when you dodge roll out of the way, their attack animation will follow you and impact you wherever you are, even though you roll. That's why the dodge roll goes so far, but it's still not enough. And that is frustrating. When you try to learn the game, it seems like these techniques don't make any sense, just button mash.
And I think Medusa's also had a big thing where like the block just wasn't very helpful. It was like you gotta dodge over and over.
Well, they terrify you in the beginning, especially because you don't know what can you do to make them stop their petrification attack.
I used block so little that I forgot it was in the game.
Yeah, it really only started being useful against the Anubis enemies.
Until you reminded me of this, I was like, wait, there's a block?
Actually, wait. Could you block? I thought the Minotaurs.
Yeah, you can block.
The main ones you can block the Minotaurs, but then they have that one attack that I think.
A major issue with the block in the first game is that it it came out when you press the button. It came out like another split second too late, which
It takes
killed
too
it.
long.
It killed it. It killed the usefulness of it, which why that was one of the many things that got fixed in God of War 2.
Yeah,
for the
and
combat.
with the Anubis enemies, for some reason the instant block works.
One thing
You,
I
you,
remember,
you hit it mid attack and it blocks them. Sorry, go on.
one of the strategies I used, at least in the PSP games, I don't remember if I think they fixed that in the main games, but the PSP games always had a specific combos that were just so good. You only used these and nothing else.
Well, that
So
was
you
always
barely had to
that was always the case until Ascension.
Yeah, so
Get
I
rid of the
always
power.
use those and kind of ignore block or dodge, just inbox combo, nothing else.
Well,
Especially when
God
you
of War
start
doesn't
upgrading.
have that many combos, to be honest.
And that's
Yeah.
where magic becomes like the big balancing act for like those issues, because then like the amount those like puzzles in the
Magic is just a
Pandora's
cheatability in God of War.
one, yeah, especially
Oh, I
the-
don't like that enemy. Boom, boom, gone.
Oh, the Medusas. That part in Pandora's Temple, where you gotta like the whole floor is gonna give out and it's timed, and all those Medusas come out, and I'm just like spamming Poseidon's Rage, whatever, just over and over, saving all my magic for that because screw that part. Like that's like that was I still remember was the one part of the game where you get that, hey, do you want to? I died so much. It's like, hey, do you want to turn the difficulty down? You want to? It's like,
Yeah, that's when he spins like a top and lightning spins around and you're like, yeah, everything's dead.
Yeah.
Get out of my way. Let's
had-
keep going.
I had just for since we were doing this, I thought, hey, let's replay the game, and I could have gone through the whole thing yesterday, but it didn't feel enough. That's a nice almost face in the sky, by the way.
Yeah, I would not recommend going through the older games in a sitting.
Yeah, but I didn't know the original God of War 1 I played was on the actual release version, and I had no trouble with that. None at all. Not even with the hated sections, except the bloody spike room.
You're talking about the PS2 version, right?
Yeah,
I think
because somebody lent that to me and said, you must try this game, it's awesome, and I did, and I thought like, yeah, that's awesome, holy shit.
Which fun
And
fact before you
the
continue?
one I now played
yeah,
is the collector's version that I got from a pawn shop that has 1 and 2 in it, and it's just I thought like, have I gotten that old that I can't play games anymore? Like, there's so much weird all of a sudden, and Ginger then told me and Mike told me that
it's an optimization issue.
yeah, there's so much fucked up with it. Like in the release version, they hit the loading for the next section really well in these tunnels you go through, these sections of nothing, and in the collection, it's you go through that tunnel of nothing, and then at the end the game stops and has the loading icon, and it just freezes for a few seconds. And the longest was like 10 seconds, and I thought, what the fuck is this? This wasn't there before.
And very issues that have been very well known with that with the collection version since launch, and some of them are still there even after a little bit of patching they had done with it, but still. And to go back to God of War 2, a fun fact: the original choice for playing Zeus in this game was Christopher Lee, but he couldn't.
Oh wow!
Because he for one reason or another he couldn't do it, so they got Corey Burton instead. Which Corey Burton is usually the stand-in for Christopher Lee for a lot of things, and now is the guy for it. Considering rest in peace Christopher Lee, but that was the thing back then with that, and also even if it was Christopher Lee, it was still a recast, considering Zeus was voiced by Paul Eiding in the first game, same as the Gravedigger, which Ghost of Sparta actually does call back to and does confirm that they are one and the same. But yeah,
Ghost of Sparta for
That made no sense to me.
yeah, fair enough.
Because
But yeah.
when you just play, yeah, they have the same voice actor, but that doesn't necessarily mean something. It can mean something, but in the first game. But I when I played it the first time, I thought it was Hades. Because well, he's digging a tunnel into
That's fair.
Hades. He's Gravedigger. Makes sense. He's a friend.
That makes more sense too, because when you see Hades in those portals, he looks like a demon monster, and it's like, oh, he's disguising himself. Like in the context of the first game, especially because the first game was just kind of, I think they definitely intended it to be one and done.
And since all the gods are supporting you in this. Yeah,
there's a plot point in 3, like it's very frustrating for me because of how stuff is in 1, story wise. But like that's like in terms of like the relationship with the gods, like this came out. I think everyone, well, most people maybe forget this came out the same year as RE4, right?
The first game did, yeah.
First game, yeah.
Yeah, but this God of War 2 specifically came out when the PS3 was already out.
Yeah, and they were just like so deep into development,
they kept it on the PS2 and then went immediately to work on God of War 3 right after.
It's like they're responsible for just the biggest next gen glow up, I guess, when you compare to how, like, because like 2 looks so similar to 1, and you compare it to 3, which is like my hot take on 2. I remember like before really getting into them or playing the first game, like it seemed to be the consensus that 2 was the favorite, and then I finally played 2, and it just kind of felt like I still like it. It felt a lot like a glorified expansion to 1 instead of
the discussion over the years. The discussion has gone back and forth between of which one the best. It's gone between 2 and 3 frequently, and it's generally accepted. It's like both games do what they wanted to do very well in their own way. So I don't know why I did that.
Oh,
oops! But they are both really good. They both have their strengths and their weaknesses. They both stand at the high peak of the series, especially considering they lead one into the other chronologically. This game leaves off in the end where this game leaves off in the end. God of War 3 picks up right after. So, and that was planned from the start.
All right. I got some questions to go through if you guys want to talk about them, from gameplay to level design to storytelling.
Awesome.
Tell me what you think. We can skip a few. There's all kinds of different ones. Anyway, here we go. The most basic one for me is, what do you think of the motivation of Kratos for his revenge? Was it justified in all the games based off the god's betrayal? And in case you guys don't remember, we all know the first one, which was Ares betraying Kratos. The second one was, I believe, Zeus
in particular. Yeah.
Well, Athena in the end betrayed Kratos as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying
the
to
first.
all the details. The third one was Gaia.
The third was Gaia, as well as all of Olympus being against you as well.
Yeah.
Which is set up in the first game already.
Yeah.
You don't know it's Gaia, but the way she cackles when Kratos does go into the temple, she knows what's going to happen.
With Gaia, I think specifically when you're injured, she abandons you, and she's like, "No, you're just a pawn. You're just..."
At the start of 3, yeah.
Yeah.
it's you wanted to go a little. Maybe I'm out. I don't know. I think it's.
So effectively, everybody is just using Kratos to kill everyone else and hopes that they get away with it.
I've always kind of seen like it's kind of a great example of a story of like if you want to just sum it up as like, hey, a bunch of people abusing an abused animal. People are all comfortable abusing because they think it's never going to get out of the cage, and then it breaks out, and it's like, oh, what did you think was going to happen?
Basically,
yeah.
Like,
and Kratos learned his lesson a long time. He basically learned his lesson the moment Ares thought he'd have him as his ultimate pawn, which is when he killed his family.
which is one of the earliest points in the timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, that is as the very point that sets Kratos on a course of revenge is the very point where he had learned his lesson, and that's when he's out for his revenge is justice, because he ends everybody who wants to manipulate him, who wants to use him.
It does all
The way
like,
I
come
would-
back into that.
The way I would describe the story in short is Greek tragedy. It's,
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
It very much follows the storytelling beats. Well, not one to one, but it very much follows similarity to Greek tragedies. So the tragic hero who gets revenge, and the ending is not a happy one. It's just everybody's dead.
Yeah.
and it's like the entire point is, that he. It's like he fight. Like, well, I heard people say that Kratos. It's like looking at it now, people are like, because it used to be a joke of like, oh, Kratos is just completely unjustified, and it's just like it's all an excuse for.
Whoever
Just killing-
claimed that?
Well, like at some point, like I think like 2010.
Yeah,
like,
that
2010.
was a
I can't-
thing back then. But the thing is, the more people looked into the series and actually gave it a proper analysis, the more it was more universally believed that Kratos was entirely justified in everything he did.
Like in the context of what they were going for, is I think more people
Yeah.
realize.
Anyone who played the game knows that. So the only people I can imagine ever made that up were people who, one, only watched the cutscenes of how Kratos was killing people, killing gods, and two, only watched those cutscenes and not anything that actually gave up any story about him.
Like I've seen people bring up that if you like with what they intended, which is I think it's clearly intended to follow how like Greek epics were and how the story is told. But like Kratos kind of does more or less fits the mold of what like ancient Greeks would consider like a classical hero, and like he follows very similar themes of pride. It's about like initial justice spiraling out of control into just entitled revenge, and then that's basically the lesson he learns in 3 is like, it was a quest for justice, and then he became he just got more and more enraged, and became just like self-righteous revenge, and he realizes that at the end of 3, and it really does follow a mold of old Greek epics for like.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about the games. It's that while they take some creative liberties, the general beats and the way they tell the story fits very much with the Greek theme, which is very nice.
Yeah, and the where the gods are actually entities you do not want to deal with.
Yeah, in Greek myth they're kind of dicks too.
There are pantheons where they are nicer. The Greek one is not one of them. The Norse, which we talk about tomorrow, in contrast, that pantheon is actually pretty nice. And to display them the way that they did is just absolutely atrocious and a distortion. They could have gone elsewhere if they had been genuine people, and if they wanted to do this whole horrible gods that are just mean to the mortals, but not to that.
I mean, the thing, they kind of did it with the Greeks, but they did it in a way that works. And yeah, you could have done something with the Norse god that works, where you portray them as assholes or as your enemy, as your opponent. I'd say you could have done that, but they just...
Yeah, but the Norse gods were friends to the people, while the Greeks were not. The Greeks were just embodiments of attributes to the extreme, which means that if they had vices, they were those vices to the extreme.
I mean, the one thing I could have seen is them... That's why I said opponents are not enemies. Them not taking a liking to the Greek god coming to the turf. because there are examples of them having quote unquote turf wars. That's with the thing with the Vani, the other types of god. So there are two main types in Norse myth, but it's just they had an agreement between each other because of a war. But that, not to get too deep into it, that's what I mean with they could have done something there.
Mm-hmm.
With him being a Greek god, seen as, hey, you're coming to our turf, and fuck you for doing what you did to the Greek gods. Are you going to do it to us too?
You know what
It's
I
kind
would
of
have
like-
liked instead? What they did? Just make a Kratos fishing game, Kratos fishing simulator, where he's now in the north, resettled there,
Scandinavia.
got his wife, got his kid, and he's just sitting at a lake and fishes. And once in a while, one of the Norse gods comes by and fishes with him. And that's the game.
He should have gone to India and fought like, and in the game you fight like these 10 or 20,000 gods they have.
Oh yeah, they have enough for him to do.
Just like if I think the original plan was they wanted to just take the Greek template, and it was like unironically this was the plan of take the Greek template and just, hey, Kratos is gonna go over here and kill all the Egyptian pantheon, and he's gonna kill the whole Norse pantheon, and then they were
Well,
gonna
with the
end
Egyptians, it would have made some sense.
Yeah, I think that would have been better for that. But then they wanted to end it like the official ending was Kratos as one of the three wise men going to see baby Jesus.
No. Specifically, the plan was in God of War 3 for Kratos to, after he killed Zeus and Olympus, he would go off and destroy all of the other pantheons. And after he succeeded in doing all of that, the game would end with the three wise men going to the North Star.
Oh, okay.
And after he killed all the gods and all the pantheons, he would then kill himself to join his family in the afterlife. And then
fuck you! You know what that just means that Kratos is just being used by Yahweh to kill all the other gods, which is just the same story again. So in the next game after that, we then get Kratos come back from the afterlife again and kill the Hebrew god.
Reminder that the original plan was changed for a reason.
I could have sworn they were like gonna have Kratos be one of the wise men, and that was gonna be...
No. At least not that.
I could have.
Thankfully, they changed that original plan to what we actually got.
The premise of, oh yeah, Jesus is. We have one God because Kratos killed everyone else.
And that doesn't even make sense with the historical timeline.
It's still funny to me.
Especially the whole Edda keeps expanding for 1,000 years after that.
It's like,
Yeah,
I gotta thank my homie Kratos. He killed everyone.
We dodged a bullet with that.
Is it just me, or is
Would have one is just
oh, there goes the connection.
What happened?
what?
It'll be good. But yeah, I don't know.
Ginga, you were
I'd lag
roboting
out.
for like 20 seconds there. I was like, whoa.
I don't know what's that's like. That was my connection. I have no idea.
Oh, shit, are we still alive?
I think so.
Everybody was just cutting out
my-
for me. It was
So it was just Discord in general, I guess.
We
Maybe.
talk about Jesus and.
But is my stream still good though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stream was fine. You just couldn't hear what you were saying, and then
So it's probably just a Discord thing.
That was a lot for one question, though. That,
all right, we can go on to another one. Since we're talking about story and characters, what were your thoughts on Kratos' character development from the first to the third game? In case you don't remember, the major beats were all about revenge from the first game with Ares.
I apologize. Give me a moment, real quick.
Okay. No problem. And, of course, being haunted by his choice to kill his family that he didn't know about. In the second game, I believe it was him becoming the new God of War, but being betrayed by Zeus. and then again getting revenge over that, and showcasing all his anger and all his determination to fight Zeus and the rest of the pantheon.
And he's already pissed in 2 or at the end of 1 because becoming the god of war instead of Ares is not what he wanted. What he wanted was to get rid of his PTSD visions.
Right.
Yeah, it was forced onto him.
Yeah, Athena
kind
of tricked him into saying, well, we can't, get rid of them as you asked, but we can just, do other things for you or along those lines.
No, not we can't, we won't.
Oh, really?
We will forgive you your deed, but you will keep suffering because nobody should not suffer that.
I see. Okay.
That was her thing. And in the beginning, Kratos came out of the ship plagued by his PTSD nightmares, and asked Athena, pleaded to Athena's statue to take the visions away, and she always formulated something in response that, from his perspective, could be interpreted as, yeah, we're gonna do that. But she didn't say that. She said, you must do one more thing for us.
And they help him. They actively help him, and they tell him, like, this is a good thing you're doing, stopping Ares. And they hype up Ares as being, like, a big threat, and he's a threat to whole of Olympus. And so they set everything up as, like, hey, you're doing great for us. We're gonna repay you.
Yeah, so it's not just Zeus that betrayed him. It's all the gods, all of them.
And then we get
because they supported the whole Ares dethroning, and he had his promise. He had his expectation of what he would get, which is a relatively humble thing. He didn't ask to become a god, which is like, instead of relief from your pain, from your that you feel guilt and shame about, and that you have brought justice to the world for as well, because you deposed of the culprit. Do not get relief from that. Instead, you are made a god. Who nobody asked for being made a god. That was not what Kratos wanted, and that speaks so much for his character.
One thing I would say is what I find really good about the Greek games, the main 3, is that the development of Kratos and the story really follows a thread. So it's never just crashes or never has a thing where you go like, what the fuck just happened? It's just, you understand in every point of the story, you understand where his character is coming from and why he's acting how he's acting. So it makes sense for him to act the way he does in every point, I'd say, as far as I remember. I never found Kratos change to be weird or strange or sudden changes that it makes sense.
It is, like, I think a big detail that keeps it aligned with older, like, Greek or even, like, tragedy stories in general, of, like, even if you disagree with it, the plot beats, the specific plot moments make it clear why he's doing what he's doing. It's not just like, it's like Shakespeare stuff too, I guess. That's what I wanted to compare it to, but like mostly Greek tragedy. And so I think it's just something people miss, because people were like, oh god, he just smashed that guy's face with a door. This is so immoral. But it's like, if you really take a look at the game, there's proper reason for it, there's payoff, and it's.
And how else are you gonna kill a god?
Yeah, and I think, and I always loved, even though they clearly meant for the first game to be like one and done, just in case they didn't get a sequel, they made it all, I think, work out well, even if they had to like retroactively explain some stuff. But like, the story makes sense of like, one happens and he gets completely screwed over by the gods, and they force him to be the next god of war. So what happens in 2? It's just like, oh, what did they think was going to happen? He basically becomes the new Ares, and he becomes the problem that he fills the problem that they used him to solve before, if they weren't so stupid to just not give him what he wanted. And I love the irony of, if they just gave him what he wanted, then they wouldn't have just, this all wouldn't have bit them in the ass. And So it's like
Yeah,
he's
and
probably at his most
that is
brilliant.
exactly the folly of Greek gods.
It's like, yeah, and if they just I think 2, I guess he's at his most villainous with that, because he's clearly meant to be like, he's become what he fought against at the start of the game, and then they humanize him a bit more later.
And he's still pissed. It's all pent up, and who should he even be pissed at? Like it's this helpless confusion in a way that he lets out in rage.
And the gods
Until he zones in on, oh, Zeus. Okay, yeah.
and they give him.
And later on he figures, oh well, Athena. She didn't give me what I wanted. She just used me, the bloody bitch. She wanted to be head god of Pantheon. That was her fucking, not just of the Pantheon, of the fucking universe.
Yeah, and that's even like a point they make in 3, is that he's gunning for Zeus, and then all the other gods, he at least tries to be like, hey, I'm not coming for you. Just go away, leave me alone. And it's like everyone just stupidly steps in his way. And so you still have that argument of yeah, they probably had it coming.
You're right. They might not be all dead.
Like, it was never explained what happened to Aphrodite, which I think is like the one major one that you don't see killed.
She was killed by the Norse gods.
Oh, is that canon? Oh,
Oh, really?
No, that was a joke. It's just
Okay.
I joke because the Norse gods don't like, technically in law, they don't like promiscuity.
Oh,
right. I didn't know that. But yeah, I think it all makes sense in terms of a Greek tragedy character arc. If he's like at his arguably most heroic in the first game, the gods screw him over, and he's just like left with nothing, and he becomes a villain protagonist. And 3, it's like the ending of the trilogy, so he's humanized more. He learns his like lesson about revenge, and he sacrifices himself and redeems himself, and it all
He finds a
makes
new
sense.
connection to someone.
Yeah, it all makes sense. And I think the one thing I have a problem with is like, I think they gloss over too much that he's the son of Zeus. Like he's been killing his family. I think that's the one detail I think they've kind of just didn't do anything with, which I think could have had, because like his whole thing is like, I killed my family, and then
Yeah, but that's the family he loved, not the family that created him to use him.
yeah, it's just, I mean, he does the most you get, I think, from what I remember, is him trying to spare Hercules.
yeah.
And that's like, he doesn't outright say it, but it's like, it's clearly being done from this point of, I know, because it's supposed to be a twist that he's the son of Zeus. Because like for half of the Greek games, you don't actually know that. I think it's in 2, it's officially said that he's the son of Zeus. So it's clearly done from a point of, Kratos knows now that that these are like the gods, and the demigods are his family, so he's sparing him or trying to do that because of that.
Also, what I like about the twist is that it's a twist that makes sense. In a sense that it's not overtly foreshadowed, but when it happens, you're like, yeah, kind of makes sense, because, well, if you know Greek myth, because in Greek myth, it is possible for demigods to become gods. So it's just, and I think it's not, I don't remember a story of a normal human becoming a god. The heroes, yes.
That type of deification is something the Romans did.
That's a good point out, because the depiction of the Greek mythos rather, in the 3 games are pretty accurate. Obviously, they take liberties with the killing of the gods. There's no stories I could point to that they show the death or violence between 2 gods where they kill each other in certain capacities.
There's also some liberty with some creatures and deities, and how things work. But overall, it is very true to the idea.
The one thing is Hades is not very accurate, but he's super cool, and he's like the best boss fight in the series, so I'll forgive that.
Hades did not have a fish face as far as I remember.
The other thing I quite like is in Greek myth, the gods have very human traits. They're gods, but they still can be like assholes.
I mean, that's the one thing with the story is him being the son of Zeus feels very. I personally wish there was more done with it, and it feels like we put it there because we have to justify why he's so strong, and it's something like most Greek tragedies did, where it's like, oh, the protagonist was the son of a god this whole time.
Oh, his strength. Well, his strength was just justified by Ares' blessing in the first place.
Yeah.
Before that, he was competent, and he called for Ares while he was losing.
But
The first time when he lost in battle, that's when he called for Ares.
It's still a
And
good
ever since
thing,
then, it's upward.
a good thing
Oh.
that plays into the theme of like Greeks, like because there's a constant theme of, Zeus killed. What's his name? Kronos tried to kill Zeus because he started to overthrow him. Zeus tries to kill Kratos because he thinks his son will overthrow him, and keeping with that. So
Yeah, that's also one thing I want to point out, that this is kind of it fits with the theme of killing your parents or the gods that came before you. With Zeus did it to the Titans. The Olympians
It's
did
just-
it to the Titans.
It's just a teenager's quest for freedom.
A bit more disastrous, rebellious face.
Yeah. You could
It's not
say
just
so.
a face, Dad. I'm gonna kill you now.
All right. Well, we saw when Gingham was playing, we were watching I think it was the Colossus of Rhodes battle in God of War 2. And I think the entire series past the first game had all these they focused on a lot of big battles. Like the first game, I think was Ares was the biggest one.
Yeah, against Athens. And that's something I wanted to mention about that. Because people say, oh, Kratos was evil all the time because he killed all those civilians in Athens because they give you health. So you do kill them. And there's no way you cannot kill them. Because they just run into your blades. They're running chaotically. Instead of running away from the monsters that you're fighting, they randomly run into them and between them so that it's impossible not to hit them. And the thing with Kratos' blades is that they are not made for precision warfare. They're made for area of effect carnage, which is why it makes zero sense to use them in Ragnarok the way they do, because he would constantly be decapitating his son and all the other
that would be-
NPCs that run around him and yell in his ear to hey, have you tried hitting the boss? Have you tried killing the thing and solving the puzzle? And hey, have you tried doing it with the fire?
It would have been nice if the blades had that effect, though. It would just shut up the NPCs because they had no heads.
Well, we mentioned a few of the battles you guys liked. I'm going to go through the list, and you can tell me which there are any good or whatnot. So the first one I remember was Ares in the first game. That was the big one. The second game, I think the Colossus was the one that sort of set the tone for the entire game of what you expect is going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So after that, there was I think it was Theseus. And he was fast and quickly, just a big ass fighter. There was Perseus, that was the big one I remember, where he was like going invisible, and yet if you attack him a certain time, it hurts you, so you have to like slow down your blows. Then there was the Kraken, which I think most of us remember. That was the one where he had those giant spikes, you had to like impale the thing. And I think that was there was the what were they called? The Sisters?
the Sisters of Fate. There's a lot more bosses in 2. I think there's.
Yeah, they're just these big, like they really put a lot of effort, and they're almost like puzzles by themselves. They're not just like
Yeah, it's a
dodging and
multi-phase boss.
yeah. This is what you want out of. To me, this is what when I think of bosses, I think of God of War games because they have so many layers of. It's not like they get their second wind. It's like no, they're gods. They're powerful. They can just do amazing stuff.
This whole first phase is about breaking his leg, and now I gotta punch his face in the second phase.
Yeah, the first one really only had the Minotaur, I believe.
In terms of bosses, it was like
Yeah, the
So,
one
yeah,
in the armor that you had to destroy
Yeah.
first, and then knock him with the
There was a Hydra at the
the
start.
log ballista. Oh yeah, the Hydra in the beginning. Yeah, I
He's
hated
a-
that one.
he's
That
a
thing
very-
is not very well designed.
Tutorial boss. But yeah, Ares is my favorite, my personal favorite of the whole series.
It's a really nice finisher for the move for the game.
Yeah, it was just so. I remember this the first time doing it. And it was so good that first time because it was like taking everything in the game that you learned, and it was putting it there, and it was so climactic with how you're a giant now, and like the part where you go into like his head and you fight the Kratos clones. That I can take or leave. But it doesn't hurt the overall thing for me.
Well, as soon as you saw that giant sword as a bridge, I was like, okay, why is there a giant sword there? And then it's, he's gonna expand into a. I get.
Oh, you spotted that right from the start?
Yeah. Oh, as soon as you see a giant thing, I'm like, what is this? Why is this? Are we gonna?
Greeks didn't make this.
You are too.
Come on.
You are too media literate.
I know. I was like, this is too. This is like blaring in your
too-
face. You're gonna grow into a giant, Kratos. Like, okay, sure.
Wait, it was too much Chekhov's sword.
Yeah, it's really obvious to me. Anyway, the the third game, we talked about Poseidon's Rage. That was the first battle, the first major boss you get into, and then you get the power of Poseidon. The one after that, I think, was Hades. I'm trying to
In 3, yeah, Hades is the next major boss in 3 after.
Okay, yeah, because I remember the Minotaur. Like, to get to the Minotaur was the problem. The Minotaur itself was like, all right, but to get there was just like, oh my god, you have to go through the entire maze.
It's been quite a while since I played the games, so I don't remember many of the bosses, but I very distinctly remember Hades. And I remember the big epic. What's the word again? Set pieces that
tug of war?
happened,
Oh no, you mean
like climbing Gaia.
Yep.
Climbing
Mhm.
Gaia.
That was
And you
cool.
gotta cut his flesh off too. Hades, anyway.
Yeah, you have to
I just
knock
I
out his
just keep
powers.
wondering what would have happened in the first game if Kratos, when he for 3 days climbed the temple atop the back of Kronos, had climbed it on the other side where he would have just climbed up the tower where the box was in and pulled the lever.
One boss I remember is, I forgot the name of the boss, the tits boss.
The tits?
It's boss?
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
best
you
one.
mean
Like the one
in
boss that had so
2?
many breasts.
Oh, you mean that's in 2. That's the Ladies of Fate, Sisters of Fate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
boss.
I remember it because it was quite controversial. Well, it was made controversial by I think Feminist Frequency
Oh,
Really?
of
did a
course.
video on it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Can't have
I
pretty
think-
women, can't have ugly women.
Can't have giant.
I
I think
women.
feminism is just misogyny.
I agree, but that's part of the reasons why I remember the boss. But also because, I mean, I just find it so disgusting. And I just distinctly remember while fighting him, going like, "What the fuck is?"
Well, that's another like liberty they took, because the sister specifically that looked like that, if you go by Greek myth, is outright said to be the most beautiful, and it's like just a funny thing I guess they did of like, oh no, she's a giant ugly ogre with multiple.
Yeah.
That was Lady of Fate, but Hades is probably my second favorite boss fight of the whole series, because it's just really well done, and you get like one of the best weapons in the game.
Yeah, then it's Hercules, as I think we mentioned, and then I think that's it. I think it's just Zeus is the last one. That's the one I hate.
Oh,
the most.
Hermes.
Wait, was that?
It's not really a boss, but it is a fight. It was like not a.
It's a set
challenging
piece
fight.
more than a
Yeah.
fight. Pretty epic though.
Is that when he's dodging everything? You can't touch him.
Yeah, he's still technically a boss fight because it's a fight you get an item from, which is how all the bosses are.
Yeah.
And you get like the most useless, like magic thing, but still, it's still neat because he's an annoying little shit, and They very clearly tried to do that character again in the Norse games, and
Oh yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, when would we fight a speedster? I was like, oh yeah, there is that boss fight in the Norse game. That's right.
Which boss?
The guy who guards the entrance to heaven. What's his name?
Heimdall.
like the gold.
Is it Heimdall?
I mean,
I think it's Heimdall.
is
you're
that in Ragnarok?
Yeah, it's in Ragnarok.
Oh, okay.
He's your mid antagonist.
I couldn't stomach the game, so I never got through much of Ragnarok. Never played it, but even watching somebody play through it, I got so pissed that I just stopped after like 2 hours.
Oh, I forgot. You have the boss fight against the Spartan guy, the last Spartan soldier. It's kind of a boss.
Is that in the first game?
That's in 2,
Oh,
and then it's like, no, Zeus, and then you fight the Kraken.
Yeah, the first game doesn't really have boss fights that much that
It's a
you
weird
can
thing.
classify as that.
Only 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ares is
The
big-
the Hydra, the Minotaur, and Ares.
Yeah, and but God of War 1 was for me the game that the first game that I played that felt as if it's out of one cast. That in the release version really gave the impression, that's why it felt so short to me, that it's all one level. Because they hit the loading screen so much, and the only real big levels are Athens and the Kronos Temple, the dungeon, because that's the only places you are. The desert interlude that is still attached to Athens.
Pandora's Temple is also long. It is a massive.
Yeah, it's the entire. It's 2/3 of the game, and it's one thing. If
goes
the
straight to
collection
hell.
hadn't messed up the secret loading, you wouldn't notice that there are any loading sections.
Yeah, and that's another thing that they God of War massively influenced along with RE4, like besides QuickTime events, the whole grand scale level design of like trying to mask it as one big level, and like you have all those pull-out shots that try to show how big the environment, like give the illusion of how big it is.
Mm-hmm.
Of like you can see where you're gonna go, but obviously
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the little section where you come, I always love, and like all things, you can't overdo it, but I always love when you have a dungeon, and then you have a section where you walk out of the dungeon and into another part. In Zelda games, there's always one dungeon that does this. It's usually the Turtle Rock type dungeons. And the Kronos Temple, the first time you walk out, it's in the Atlas Trial. You walk out of the cave, and then around the ledge on the outside, and you see the giant chains, and below you see the head of Kronos as he keeps walking, crawling through the desert, and you climb around on the outside in these sections. It's that was breathtaking the first time. Like, cool. That is really cool.
Like you mentioned before how smart like the use of puzzles in the games, which is like there's a heavy emphasis too.
Mhm.
And it's like I always liked how they had that flow into the levels itself, like how in Athens you do the puzzles with the ballistas, and and it all flows on top of each other. It's like
When I first
the puzzles
played
are in the
games-
right place. Yeah, crazy.
When I first played the games, I was quite a bit younger, and I used to be very impatient. And always with the puzzle, I was like, just be over puzzle. I want to fight things. So that's one thing I distinctly remember. But looking back, the puzzles are very good, very well integrated.
and
And
Yeah,
it's
they're never in the wrong place. In Athens, you don't. It doesn't feel like you have puzzles.
And
You're
they're
just going
paced-
through the town.
And they're paced very well. It's never like, oh, just be over. It's more like, oh, that's an interesting breakup of the thing.
And they keep
Except
it
for
like
the
that.
spike room.
Yeah, that's just that's like, hey, remember the SNES and the bullshit stuff in that? Yeah.
No, that thing is just so misdesigned. The ledge, it doesn't work right, and the timing is the thing. I like that God of War 1 has very tight timing on many of the puzzles, but
Aw.
with some it is too tight. It is to the point of frustration.
Oh god.
And the spike room is the one where that went too far in that.
Two did a noticeable thing with the puzzles that where I was like, it was I just saw as a negative of. 2 had like 3 or 4 sections where their idea of a puzzle was, hey, push this block up this hill while we have I think it is like infinitely spawning enemies, and you have to get it to a certain point, and then
Oh, that's in 1 with the cage for the sacrifice.
Were they infinite in that? I don't remember if they were like constantly, but there was that part, but it was just one part, and then in 2 they just have more and more, and it's noticeably harder, and it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like the one problem I had.
Yeah, let's talk about the actual level design, because that's also part of the puzzles and the environment. Kind of like we see right now, it's all over the place. But in the first game, you had I think it was the sunlit ruins of Athens to the Temple of Pandora. And
yeah, I always call it the Temple of Kronos, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But that's, you have the city and you have the dungeon. And for the dungeon to have puzzles that are classic puzzles with pull this lever, move this rock, move this box. Here have a little Tetris section with blocks that you spin on the spinning device. That is all just done in this very era-fitting technology. It fits. That's where you should have these puzzles. The whole place is designed as a giant vault where you have to go through all of these trials to be worthy of the thing or to never reach the thing. And the puzzles are not randomly in the world for no good reason, but, oh, let's have gameplay, let's have a video game. No, there's a point to it. And that's the I think the biggest contrast to the Norse games. Because there it's just, here's a video game puzzle in the level because you need we need 2 or 3 of these, and here's your commemoratory upgrade treasure chest around the corner.
Also, we're not going to shut up about how you're supposed to solve it unless you actually solve it.
There's nobody telling you anything.
I mean, the Norse compared to the Norse did that. Well, my point is that the Norse did that compared to this, where it's do-it-yourself, bitch.
Yeah.
Call the boy to beat the puzzle.
I would slightly disagree on one point. Is sometimes I found the puzzle a bit unfitting, but not to the point where it would be distracting or immersion breaking. Mm-hmm. Just at times I would be like, okay.
I think it's like, looking back on it, it's like they're legitimately good pace breakers. Of just.
Do you have an example for that? For a bad one?
No, I couldn't think of one off my head, but I distinctly remember sometimes feeling like, But it's as I said, not to the point where it would be like it's bad that it is there, but it.
Yeah. So the outstanding.
Sometimes just having a hint of being aware that it's a game. So in that sense, but not in the sense that I would be like, oh, this is horrible, or it doesn't make any sense at all.
I'm struggling to remember the puzzles. I remember liking them, but I'm struggling to remember a specific puzzle in 3. There was one with like the Apollo's arrow, I think, where you catch stuff on fire. But
one example I would give is like, because it was shown on the stream at the beginning of where you sometimes have doors that you open, then you have to push kick boxes to the other side on the plate there, where in my head it would be like, why would the doors be like that? Why have this tiny puzzle here when in this set piece suddenly a tiny puzzle in there. That kind of stuff would be slightly for me be like, but it's not to the point where I would say it's bad.
Yeah, and that's what I praised the first game for, because it completely keeps apart where you have the puzzles. You have the puzzles, the puzzles in the dungeon, and the environmental happenstance puzzles in the city.
Like we gotta
Those
get
are-
across
those
the
are two-
bridge, or like
Yeah. Yeah, or use the ballista to open the gate, the door. Kick over the
Oh.
statue to climb up the building.
Yep.
yeah, like here's the specific puzzle, like just environmental. Yeah, there
Yeah.
was a straight platforming section.
They're
in
not-
one.
Yeah, they're not mechanisms intended to be puzzles. And the outstanding thing for the first game for me was as well that the Pandora's Temple, the entire building itself was a puzzle. That you get in after the once you get through the entrance hall, and you get into the outer ring, and then realize you can spin this thing, and the way it's set up, it looks like you're spinning the mountain, but really you are on the platform that spins the ring around until the opening next to you aligns with one of the gates to another room, to another section of outside the outer ring, like the trials, or a secret room even. And I found that really amazing, especially once you realize that the way this is set up, you have your 3 concentric circles, and they represent the rings of Atlantis.
Oh yeah.
So there's another hint there to something else in that in mythology, and that the Greeks themselves were very interested in and venerated. And you align those. The rings of Atlantis were also used in the Indiana Jones game that is about Atlantis, where you had these 3 concentric stone circles, and they were used as a code key that you would put them atop each other at the respective places, and then turn them until the right symbols are aligned, and that would open doors, for example, or start mechanisms. And that's here. It's the entire temple is these rings of Atlantis that you have to align in the right way to open the next section. That was great. The only other games I knew that did that, I hadn't played yet. Like Skyward Sword did some similar things with its dungeons.
Yeah, the subject of like they're not overtly video gamey, and like they feel part of the environment and stuff. I just remembered like the one puzzle that really falls out of that is in 3, where it's just a straight up Guitar Hero rhythm game section.
Oh no!
With giant PlayStation
Oh yeah.
button prompts, and it's like that's the one puzzle in that game, or even the whole series, that's just really out of place. That's But like other than that, the puzzles in 3 were also good. I just remembered the ballista puzzle, where you gotta fire these ballistas into, well, like it's like you gotta take one ballista and you gotta fire it through these like special mirrors that serve as portals, and you gotta make it so this one ballista can go through multiple things, and it's like in a specific room.
I think that's the right design philosophy here that we see in some of the Zelda games, where the dungeons are specifically set up to be trials for the hero. And the first game does this exact thing, and later ones they fumble a bit on it.
Oh, and
I think that's certainly a lesson that people should take away from the first game.
I know it's not a favorite, but I also really loved the puzzles in Ascension that had like they were basically all like time travel, manipulate time and reconfigure stuff and
Yeah, I was gonna say not time travel.
It's not time travel, but it is time, manipulation.
It's just time manipulation.
And I really liked it. And they did that thing with they did the similar thing with the Pandora's Temple of it's a giant, like, because there's a part, it's about the statue of Apollo, and it's this giant level / set piece of it's similar to the Pandora's Temple of it's a giant puzzle you are going through phases of building upon, and you have to go through this whole extended level of rebuilding the statue, and it's just so well done, and it might be my favorite set piece in the whole series. If I don't think many people have played Ascension, but I love Ascension.
So how about another
It's
question?
just after I'm so combat is a later topic, I think.
One tangent I wanted to go on was because we had it on screen, the snow effect. I find newer games have obviously more graphical fidelity with effects like these, but they always look worse in my opinion, because when you have it in this game, the snow effects are simple, but they work. They work so well, and sometimes I'm sad that graphical fidelity made them more graphical fidelity,
Lame.
but lame. Yeah, it made them lazier.
Reality
that's one
is
thing
lame.
That's one thing I really appreciate about. I mean, so many newer games, when it rains in the game, it is made so realistic that it basically looks like it's just foggy. Yeah, because I mean, in real life, you don't really see the raindrops because, they kind of fit in with the background.
Yeah.
But in a game, I like it when it looks like it's raining, and so when you make it so realistic,
there is rain that rains like that. It's when we in German we say it's regnet Bindfäden, so it's raining strings.
Yeah,
but that is what you can see, but that type of rain is rare. But that is the kind of atmospheric rain you want in media when you want to convey in an atmosphere.
Yeah, that's one thing I just was reminded of when I saw the snowing effect with the wind blowing effect. It's just so well done stylistically in all the games, and in newer games it's just kind of boring. And
Yeah.
I like seeing rain similar to like old films or the samurai films where it's just heavy rain. It's just, I love that. It really gets across that it's raining. When you make it super realistic in media, it kind of gets to a point that it doesn't feel like it's raining or snowing.
People in chat were talking about thoughts on like the cut content and like what Kratos was supposed to look like, and how like they had an idea for like an optional unlockable woman Kratos if you beat the game. I think
That was a thing that was planned, but it got cut.
I don't think that fits.
Yeah, Kratos was supposed to be blue. That's like the big thing.
That's
What?
true. Yeah, the red tattoo was originally going to be blue.
Oh,
Then he would look like a Celtic warrior.
Oh, when you said he was supposed to be blue, I thought the entire body blue.
No, the tattoo.
He's an ice giant.
No, the blades.
A
the
nice
tattoos.
giant?
Oh yeah,
Well,
like Norse.
We're talking
That's the whole
about.
thing with Baldur. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that was one of the things with the two, not the brothers. Who are they called? Satyr and Igni. I can't remember their names. In the Norse games, they one of them was blue because he was brought back to life, or he was an ice giant or one of those species, and the other one was not. So I was trying to figure out what.
Oh yeah, the one with Brock and Eitri, I believe.
I think
And
Oh!
yeah. The one turned blue because he was technically undead, but that's also a mistake where they take something from the Finnish mythology that is not present in Norse mythology in the first place, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, block. I got confused for. Well, like they do. Yeah, it's for Norse. Like, I think there's a funny influence.
Because split souls are not a thing. But sorry,
Yeah.
go
Well, like
go on.
a funny influence on according to David Jaffe, like he was originally blue, like the tattoos are blue, and they went with red. Apparently, as part of like an influence came from, if you know the game Shinobi, or like
Yeah.
the PS2 game where he has that long red scarf. That's like the most well animated thing in that game.
I have.
Yeah, and David
Funny that-
Jaffe said that was an influence because he was like he wanted a kind of like eye-catching thing that the character carried around, and that was like an influence on the Blades of Chaos, and then just making Kratos' tattoos blue, red.
I was just had flashback to childhood because Shinobi was the first 18 plus game I've ever played. I extremely distinctly remember the scarf and how
Yes,
brutal
yeah.
that game was. It's a
And
fun
here I
thing you
thought
mentioned
they-
that.
Yeah, and here I thought they changed the tattoo because it would look Celtic if he was blue.
Yeah,
And
it
that would be
I
confusing.
mean, red just fits so well with the entire
Yeah.
color scheme of Sparta, etc.
And all the blood
And rage.
The blood, rage, and
yeah. But it was like partially just because it was the most eye-catching, and he liked the scarf in Shinobi, and that scarf was red, and yeah.
Okay.
But how cool would it have been if the white part of him would have been blue? So blue with the red tattoos. That would have been perfect.
It should be an unlockable costume.
That would be Hindu face.
And if you unlock the custom, your speed is doubled because blue.
Oh, then
Oh,
then,
God.
then he would be one of the Indian God of Wars. Would that be?
Ooh.
Yeah, that's why I said
Yeah.
he'd be Hindu face.
Krishna.
You should see the original designs of Kratos where he had dreads.
What?
Huh.
I'm
Dreads?
serious. Yeah,
I'm starting to think that Jaffe himself is a Verhoeven type who doesn't know what he's doing and then makes something else than he
Great.
wants and intends, but it's somehow accidentally the most amazing thing ever.
like he looked way different. They were gonna go with like a mysterious, like he has the Spartan helmet on
Yeah,
the whole
yeah.
time, and you just see the eyes. So it was like a kind of project yourself thing. Because his design was so different.
Also, I just remembered, Smudge, were you talking about Agnium Modi?
Were those the two guys' names? I can't remember.
Oh, you
The
mean
brothers
Raw?
in 2018? Was it?
Oh, those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
Bruce's kid. No,
That's
it's
Magni and
Thor's-
Modi.
Thor's
Magnium
kid,
Modi.
yeah.
Thank you, Whisp.
That's those are the sons of Thor. He was
Okay.
talking about the dwarves.
Yeah. I got
Oh, okay.
That blue dwarf for some reason is blue. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because the race thing came up in all the discussions I was researching, and it was like, this is one of the things that people were talking about, and it was like, oh, okay. I was looking through the Edda. The,
Okay.
the
Well,
poetic-
yeah, my bad. I was thinking of the wrong brothers.
Yeah, no, I was doing all this. I didn't read the sagas. The sagas are just another whole story. But
That's just people.
yeah, I was like, okay, I
no.
can't really use that as reference. But I was looking at the poetic and the prose, and I was looking for like, how do they describe everyone? And it's pretty much they all look the same aside from the giants and the dark elves. That's where they're pitch black or whatever. So yeah, when they change things around from the original, you're like, why did they do that? And I have no answer. There's no design choice. There's no.
No, it's random. It's just the Norse games are just name dropping Norse stuff. The content wise, there's very little that is in any way accurate.
All right. Well, anyway, that's a different topic for tomorrow. I'm going to keep going with the questions here. Do you guys believe the trilogy ending, so the third game, provided a satisfying conclusion to Kratos' story in Greece? And in case you don't remember, he fights Zeus, he defeats Zeus, and he has the ultimate act of sacrifice. He sacrifices his life to, I believe, release hope into the world, as the ancient Greek story goes. And some people like that, some people didn't.
Which is what can recreate the world.
Yeah, it was the ambiguity I think people didn't like at the end of what happened to his body and what exactly occurred to him. And people
That
argued.
confused me like that.
I never found it that ambiguous.
Well, even again, there was a post credit where they showed that Kratos' body wasn't there anymore.
Right.
I think just people didn't. I think a lot of people just wanted that to be.
Like it's like they did ultimately leave the door open for more games, whatever that was planned for that. Obviously, we know what we got, but they at least gave that opportunity for anyone that wanted to come in later. Unfortunately.
For me,
Yeah.
I found the ending to be just good. And there shouldn't have been anything afterwards. Because I found, for me, it was like, okay, God of War is finished now.
I think it's just a very fitting.
It really should have ended with Ascension, because that's the one that basically rounds out the entire story of Kratos in the series.
I think it's just a very fitting, like, just in context of the Greek pantheon, it's very fitting for that.
Yeah.
Just all their plans went to shit. Everything they said that Kratos, like, they just messed up. They got too prideful, and everything blew up in their faces. And
To me,
it is the absolute conclusion of the absolute hubris of the gods.
especially Athena, just being like, "Ha, everything went according to my plan. Now, Kratos, would you please help me after I just told you
Would you please give me the power of hope? Yeah.
After I made your life hell.
It's just very fitting, and it's like a very fitting final, like, just heroic human act from Kratos, because he's thinking about what Pandora said, and it's like, yeah, I think it's just maybe not. I think fitting for Kratos, but more fitting for just the Greek gods. And,
I found it fitting for Kratos too. I mean, with all the shit he's been through, it's just like, wanna be done with it.
It's in the that's why I have finally brought Ginga to play Asura's Wrath, and he's missing the last act, but I've told the story before, and it's basically the same story but shorter in one game, with a completely different setting, and that is the main character being betrayed and used, his family abused, and he is then on a path of revenge, but that is justified. So he brings justice, and he is not satisfied with that. His rage does not subsume until he has the final culprit. Everyone else gets in the way, but because he too ultimately just wants to get to Deus, which is the equivalent to Zeus. But then it turns out there's somebody even behind that who was pulling the strings, quite literally, and quite thoroughly, for thousands of years. And Asura is only satisfied once that has been dealt with, which leads to his own demise, just like Kratos. But the entire essence of it all is a world that needs to be manipulated does not need to exist. Because everybody, the Greek gods are just manipulating everybody. The whole world is basically a lie. Freedom, liberty, happiness is not possible because there is some asshole above it all who decides whether you even get that or don't. And you don't even know that individual exists.
It's like that the ending to the story we got at launch for Asura's Wrath is like, I can only describe it as Athena on crack. Is basically what that ending was before the fourth act was added.
Yeah, all the Greek gods rolled into one, because at least the antagonists before that in Asura's Wrath, you could say they have a cause. Whether you call it just or justified, that's up to debate.
Yep,
that's questionable. But they at least have a goal that is worthy of pursuit, while the final culprit does not.
Mm-hmm.
Although that specifically Ginga doesn't know yet. So and I encourage everyone to play that game yourself, because the QuickTime events in that game are done so well that they are part of the experience, and it's probably the only game that ever did it that well, and nobody learns from it. So on the little tangent, Ginga, what would you say about is it enough to just watch a playthrough of Asura's Wrath, or should one play that himself?
My expectation was that watching it would have been fine, but I figured there was more to it than that, considering it took a lot of influence from these games from God of War. So I had finally decided to play it for myself, and now I can say for certain the best way to experience it is playing it firsthand. Especially if you're a fan of the Greek God of War games, like we said, that's like the influence is obvious from what that one took from these games, and essentially doubled down on a lot of things in terms of the plot, in terms of the story beats.
Yeah, there's a reason that studio was then commissioned to do all the Dragon Ball games.
Well,
Yeah,
just
they
one,
really-
one in particular, which was Kakarot, which is a full action RPG retelling of Dragon Ball Z, that did put the most work into showing as much of the original story as possible. The first time that a Dragon Ball game had shown that much of the story.
All right.
So that much to that side tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a few other questions, but one of them was a little more story focused, and it's like the supporting characters. And there's not too many supporting characters outside of maybe Athena or maybe Gaia, and they all betray you anyway. So it's just like they're all the same.
There are those in the spin-offs, like at least I know. Well, not side character, but the character that was the point of contention in Ghosts of Sparta, which was the end game goal for Kratos, which was saving his brother, Deimos.
It's like you have like each game has its own supporting cast, and it's just seems like it's just a very Kratos centric.
Yeah, the story definitely the spin-offs definitely helped flesh out a lot more of Kratos' life over the course of the series. So obviously, Ascension, the series prequel, which is when his servitude to the gods actually starts, and how that got started, as well as Chains of Olympus, which was halfway in the story of which that story used Persephone and Atlas as the antagonists. To flesh out certain things that would also be touched upon by God of War 3.
It is a bit too much, maybe, of hey, here's the supporting characters are here between the games to be like, hey, here's another thing the gods messed with that hurt Kratos, and it's...
Oh, that's another really good thing about the first game, where you have this passive support character, which is the architect of the dungeon, whose life story you basically learn, where he starts as a devoted follower of the gods, who is so happy that he got this job of building the temple, that houses Pandora's box, and it becomes his life project. But that life project costs him both his sons. In the end, he kills his wife, and the temple itself becomes his own tomb that way. And as you go through, you just through a few lines of text, you learn about this and how he in the end felt betrayed by the gods himself, and even had a mural installed just before the box that shows a warrior going up against Zeus in the ground. Because at that point, he is not a devoted follower of the gods anymore. He himself wishes revenge upon them.
Yeah, it's like every supporting character is there to just for Kratos and the player to see how monstrous the gods are.
Yeah, so to say that Kratos is not justified in what he does, like, I don't know, that's people who don't understand the story.
It's like they just see
and the world
where he's over the toply beating a god to death, and it's like that's all they get out of it.
Yeah, oh no, he's violent man is violent. His victims are the real victims. Have you thought about what those people did?
Hey, did you know?
Are you aware?
Poseidon is a rapist in Greek canon.
So Zeus.
Yes.
I mean,
a lot of others. It's kind of the thing. It's a bit of Olympus is a bit of a rape culture, and suddenly we had these weird people of a political persuasion that went about defending this white heteronormative rape culture pantheon because Kratos man is being mean to them. What the hell? Nothing makes sense.
I do want to point out something here about this scene in particular, about how Zeus was spared the wrath of his father. And the rock right here that Zeus's mother uses to trick Kronos, it's retconned in God of War 3 as something that Hephaestus uses to create one of your weapons there.
Is it retcon or is it like?
It's a little bit of a retcon because here it's just shown as just some rock.
Yeah,
But the thing is that
rock and you gotta get
they need the specific rock that it's in Kronos, that it was retconned that it was the specific rock that Zeus's mother used to trick Kronos for the sake of saving Zeus from Kronos. Because you go into Kronos to find the damn rock. What was it? The Nemesis whip in 3? The last weapon you get?
Yeah, it's Nemean Cestus Supremacy, to be honest.
The Nemean Cestus is from Hercules, yeah.
I know, but that's the best weapon in that game.
Now, to go back to story, it's like this whole thing, at this specific aspect of the trilogy where they use flashbacks to convey parts of the overall backstory that are relevant to the specific story. In the first game, it's the backstory of how Kratos became the Ghost of Sparta, the deal with Ares and everything. The ashes on his skin. In this game, it's how Zeus and the Olympians came to power over the Titans. And in 3, it's related
which
to
again
Pentarch
is surprisingly accurate to the actual myths.
Oh,
yeah.
shit. Oh.
But
contrary to a certain other God of War game.
Yeah, right.
Where we put tats on Baldur and made him look disheveled.
That old thing.
Yeah,
it's like
the guy that everybody loved. The bestest of the best, the most good person ever.
The guy
turned
that
into this psycho.
That
Wasn't he known
literally,
for
when
being
he
pretty?
died, they managed to get every living being except the Loki to cry for him. So okay.
Oh yeah, Loki, who's not even in the Norse games technically because they retconned that.
Yeah.
But I was so pissed. I was so pissed about that.
When Loki supposedly tricks and kills Baldur in the Edda, but in the game he's just a guy with a bow, just not doing
Not a
anything.
guy with bow, an annoying fucking kid with bow.
Yeah. Oh, it's not that Loki kills Baldur. It's that he tells the blind guy, "Hey, use this stick that I found, and shoot it at Baldur." Well, in the Baldur is invincible game. It's so fun to shoot things at him, and he doesn't get hurt, right?
What was the specific weakness was what, mistletoe, was it?
Yes.
And then it's a complete. It's
It's not
accident.
a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's that in the myth, the real myth, Freya did not ask the mistletoe to the oath, the burden, not burden. This promise to not harm Baldur, because the mistletoe is still too young, and therefore you can't really ask the young mistletoe this thing that it doesn't yet understand or something, like a child, and that is why the mistletoe was not yet in on I won't harm Baldur. But every other living creature, living thing, every non-living thing too,
Yes,
promised
that includes
to not harm
thing.
him.
I cried for him, except for Loki, was disguised as a woman.
And it's
That's
not
a
even.
woman.
It's not even that. It's like in the game. It's just it lifts the curse when it's not even.
Yeah, it's just stupid. They in other things they go so hard about all the our magic is all about metaphor, and with the Baldur they just completely ignored it. To have here's random sticks that harm him.
Oh, is mistletoe? Maybe I don't know what mistletoe is. I thought.
It's the stuff that you Americans have to kiss beneath during
yeah.
Christmas.
Christmas. Yeah.
I thought it was just to leave. I don't know. Well, like on Greek stuff, that's the original design for Kratos. I put in chat.
Oh,
Or at least one of them. Yeah.
All right.
Like one of the earliest.
Well,
it looks like a completely different game type.
the only other question I have left is a comparison of gameplay between the God of War games and the two most recent ones.
Oh God.
Some people say that it's a completely different game, that the originals are all about fast, combo-driven combat, whereas the Norse games are more of a linear focus. You're more tactical. You're doing very specific attacks to an individual as opposed to everyone around you.
I think this is where Mario would really be good to be on, because I think Ovasi is the only one who played the Norse games.
I
just
played the
like
first
gameplay
one.
better.
I played the God of War 2018. I didn't play Ragnarok.
Because that's spam.
I have not played either of those two abominations.
I just don't like.
It's-
I've never played it, but the gameplay just does not look better at all, and I just
It's-
vastly prefer the.
The
Yeah,
the gameplay is it's just very, very different. It's kind of they try to be more tactical while keeping references to the original God of War, but it's just so awkward that it
it's
kind of
more
doesn't
an RPG
work.
Thing. It's more like an RPG thing with armor, and you can customize armor too. I think.
Yeah,
And
that
it's-
too, but it's also the moment-to-moment gameplay is just the camera is too close, so you have to focus on single enemies, but they have several enemies that can come from the sides. The combos are incredibly awkward and incredibly limited, and you only have 2 weapons, so the weapons really get insanely boring. It's just the one thing I would say they did well with the weapon. They had some interesting puzzle ideas with the axe that I liked, and they're throwing the axe and calling it back. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, they did keep the puzzle They did keep puzzles at least, but
But the moment-to-moment gameplay is just it's interesting at first, and it works in the boss battles. There it kind of works, but with the normal enemies, it's just trying it on a hard difficulty. It's just like, oh, something I didn't see just killed me. Oh, something I didn't see just hit me. It's just
so the camera was so pulled
Yeah,
back.
the camera work being so different is what hurt it severely.
No, well, look
yeah.
at this. Like the camera's constantly moving as you're navigating. Kratos is pretty tiny on the screen compared to the rest of the level, and you have a much bigger point of view from when you're fighting, so you can see things coming around.
Like, yeah, and
the camera work. This is still old style camera work, where the camera moves on a predefined path as you move through the level. You don't have a free camera on the right stick. Instead, the right stick is used for dodge roll into a specific direction. And the positive thing about that is that you can hide more secrets in a level, and you can always make sure you have the scenic shot. You don't see everything at once, which can take away from the magic.
You have control.
The downside of that is when this camera design is wonky, it messes up gameplay. Like when you have to balance around an area and the camera rotates around as well, and you have to adapt the control, the stick to the changing direction. That is atrocious. And what you also had was what old games especially did a lot. What you know from Resident Evil, from Silent Hill, from Alone in the Dark, and even older games. As you move through the level, the fixed camera switches to a different position in the same room.
Yeah.
And especially in the first game, there are instances where it's not just that you walk from one camera angle to the next, that you change direction as you walk, but there's one specifically in the Atlas room where if you walk into the other camera, you keep the direction, you automatically walk back into the previous position. And you loop back and forth. It's great.
Yeah,
The thing I would say is in the new God of War, the gameplay would have been so much better if it could have worked with a control camera by the player, but for the combat, if they had done something like Ghost of Tsushima does, where the camera is usually very close, but as soon as you enter combat, it zooms out dynamically to make you see everything, make you see everyone, and there are multiple enemies attacking you, but you can react because you see them. Now, the
Assassin's Creed does
the Norse ones have these indicators, but it's just they're so short and can be so distracting that it's just like that you hit, and before you can even react.
They were just so fixated on doing the over-the-shoulder, I guess, Last of Us style. Like, it's not even really in the style of Resident Evil 4 or anything. It's more...
And it's just...
Why can't it be its own game anymore?
It just dumped... It really made the combat so simple.
It's not
with
like
the combos, etc.
Yeah.
It's just the combos and the general combat just feels way more visceral and like
they don't have any of this,
epic
right?
in the Greek ones. Now the boss fights, they're very cool in the Norse ones. They're cool set pieces. They really did those well. Like the very first boss fight against Boulder in the first game is very cool. So you really feel the impact of that and everything. But I still think while it works for boss fights, not all of them boss fights, overall I'd say they should have kept more from the Greek games.
I wish did they not keep the like this kind of grab attack stuff where they get the button over their head and
no buttons over the head is nothing. Do you have it more like execution style where you just sometimes there's something like that, but I remember it not really being a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's really
the problem
really...
with the Norse is that it seems to be aware that it's a game.
Yeah, that and it is at the same time feels like they try to make a new IP while also doing a continuation of the original IP. It felt like it would have been so much better as a new IP instead of a God of War game. And it just really doesn't feel quite right.
I always thought they should have just do a similar premise of like, hey, we follow a guy with this pantheon and he's fighting them. I think they should have just had it where it was like Mimir was the main character. And you did
also
that.
the Norse one just feels so much funny, even though a lot of people say, oh, it's finally grown up, etc., finally mature.
Oh god, no, it's the opposite.
The combat is so like you barely fight any humans. When you fight humans, there's no blood seen, none at all, and it just feels.
It's growing up by reducing the aging.
I have no clue why it has the 18+ age rating in Europe
too.
Because. It just I don't see why it could have been a 16+. I really don't get it why it has an adult as in Europe an adult age rating. I really don't get it in the Greek games. Oh, absolutely, yeah, those are 18+ games. With the Norse ones, it just
how much they were inspired by Last of Us. Clearly, you'd think they'd have more bloody fistfight combat.
Oh, the irony, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't see him repeatedly bashing heads like you see in the Greeks. It's just... And then you have this annoying kid, and...
Well, he can't let his son see him rip a Minotaur's head off.
But they try to play both worlds. They try to make it brutal, but at the same time, new to the brutality. It's like having a samurai film old school, where they kill each other, but there's no blood flying everywhere. It's just like, okay.
As opposed to here, where you literally just saw Kratos bash Odysseus' skull in with the damn door.
He just tried to close the door.
Yes, it just won't budge. It won't close. Okay, there you go.
It's like when your car door doesn't close right, and you use a bit more force.
Yeah, just like the gag in The Incredibles.
It happened. Short story. One time, my brother and I argued, and I tried to go into his room, and he slammed at that moment the door. So it was my head between the door and the door frame. That fucking hurts.
Smud Mayo jumped in.
Hello.
Hey, Mayo. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing? I just finished a 2-hour podcast with the Electric Underground and Boulder Punch talking about the Silent Hill 2 remake, and I'm ready to jump into whatever the hell you guys are talking about.
Well, we
all right.
just finished our last question I was asking everyone, so...
Okay, for the end, for the conclusion.
Well, the questions are done. The questions are done, but we can still bring up... So you can bring up whatever things you want to bring up about the Greek era.
Yeah, I'm just popping in. I'm just popping in. You guys can finish this whenever you want.
And also, there's also the Norse era tomorrow, so you still have a chance for that. But
That's then comparison time.
yeah, very much comparison time.
Because today we have a lot of good things to say about the Greek games. Some things have aged a bit, of course, because a lot of firsts for the series.
Well, to be fair, there are some good things about the Norse games.
Of course.
Yeah, but the ratio, but the ratio between them is like Greek era has so much more good.
Hey, I'll say this: there's good performances in the Norse games.
One thing I really have to give to the Greek games, it's just they're just a lot of fun to play.
It's just fun. It's
just fun to fight and kill stuff in the game.
Yeah, and they're short enough to where you actually want to replay them multiple times.
And especially the first one tricks you into believing it's short. Because it just has two big set pieces.
Having the topic of gameplay comparisons with the newer ones, in the Greek ones, I wouldn't say it's limited, but I used the word nonetheless, the limited number of weapons work. Because the weapons really are, you can do a lot with the weapons. In the new ones, you just have 2 weapons and you can't do as much with them, so it's just...
Yeah, they had such a perfect, series of weapons in the third game that I was just my only problem was...
the evolution was, in the first game, you have the Blades of Chaos and the Blade of Artemis. That's about it. In the second game, they give you more options, which include the Blade of Olympus, the Hammer from the Barbarian King, and the Spear of Destiny. You have 4 weapons, but only 2 at a time, and then 3 let you use all 4 at once.
Yeah.
And
what did you want to say?
Mayo?
What?
Did you want to say something before I brought up the thing about the weapons?
Well, I mean, yes, the reboot only has the axe for a very, very long time, but I think what they were counting on was that the variety would come from the runes, and it does, but you can only have 1 light and 1 heavy rune equipped at any time, so you have all this variety that you can't actually use practically during combat.
Yeah, which is why the runes ultimately didn't amount to much.
I actually forgot that there were runes in it because they were so not consequential for me. But the one thing I want a slight tangent where I think the way you could have iterated on the system, on the weapon system, which was probably my favorite way to do it, is Bayonetta. With the weapon similar, you get weapons. There are a limited amount of weapons, but you can have 2 of them active. Yeah, and you have your feet and your hands, I love that system so much.
Yeah, which is why such a silly amount of combinations, which the third one ditches for no good reason.
Yeah, it's 1 and 2, you can only have 2 weapons active at a time, but the compromise is that you have 2 separate loadouts that you can access at any point.
It sounds like you had even more variety in Ascension compared to the Norse games.
And then DMC, and then Devil May Cry, whatever weapons that gave you access to all of them at once, no matter what.
And the thing is, it is very cool to have the weapons and great to have multiples, but there are games that work with just only having 1 weapon.
Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima. It works with the one weapon. You just have different styles for that one weapon. You can make it work with having very limited weapons, and the Greek ones made it work with the few weapons they have because each weapon was very varied, and you could do combos with it. Yeah, not too many combos, but enough to be.
It's fun enough.
Yeah, it's fun enough. And in the Greek ones, you just have these two weapons, and they could have made so much with these, but they didn't.
Magic too, I think, helps in the Greek games, like vary up the combat.
Yes. The ability to have 4 different magic attacks at any time was great, and I don't think that we can stress enough the importance of resource management in the original games. Because on the higher difficulties, not only did you take more damage, but your magic costs more to use.
Yeah.
And so you would go into these big fights, and yeah, you can use all your magic and survive, sure, but do you know if there's going to be a magic recharge in the next room? You don't. And so you have to make this almost survival resource management decision where I'm going to use magic, but that might mean that I might not have magic for the next fight.
Yeah, it might be drained for a while. Yeah,
it created this awesome game decision-making based gameplay where not only was using magic an actual decision instead of having something that just recharges on a cooldown, but your life was something that you had to manage as well. And I stress this so much whenever I talk about the original games, that you went into a fight and you had 100% health, and then you got out of that fight with 10% health. What did that mean for the next fight? It meant for the next fight, you were kind of screwed. That you really had to be conservative, and to get out of that fight, you might have to empty out all your magic just to get through. And so it becomes this fight for resources. And so if you go into a fight with 100% health, and you make it out of that fight with 90% health, you're feeling pretty good because you're taking that health into the next fight. And it made you more protective of your own health bar. It made you block more. It made you parry more. It made you not overextend your combos so much in fear of getting hit. It made you think a lot more about the moment-to-moment combat, what you're doing. Oh, am I going to go for a higher combo so I get more XP? Well, that's at the risk of me taking damage and not having enough health to get through the next fight. And all of that is gone in the reboot. It's all gone.
Yeah.
Not just because
you forget one thing that makes this even more amazing, and I love this idea that they had in God of War 1. I don't know what other game did this, and that is the recharge chests that switch between health and magic, and you can decide
cool.
which you
Which
take.
All the Greek games have them.
Yeah, and I love that. I don't know of other games that have this. Like, you have the fixed ones, but the most common one is the one that switches after a section. And do you recharge your magic or do you recharge your life?
I did like that a lot. Yeah, I actually
Love that.
I actually forgot. I don't think we brought up, but like, if mechanic I just forgot was like if you have a higher combo bar or like meter, you get more red orbs from the fight, right?
Yeah, it's a higher reward, which relies mainly on skill.
Yeah, and the risk of, am I going to go for this longer combo, or am I at the risk of taking damage, or needing to use magic resources to extend this to get that extra 50 or 75 or 100 XP bonus at the end of the combo. And here, the thing about health, the biggest misstep in the reboot is that all checkpoints instantly restore all 100% of your health. So if you go into a fight and you die, it respawns you at the checkpoint. Even if you didn't have health at that checkpoint, now you have 100%. And so coming out of a fight with no health means nothing, because all you have to do is run into the next fight, die, and you get it all back.
To be fair, though, it was at higher difficulties. It's insanely easy to die in that game because you can't see the enemies that attack you.
You get you get severely blindsided.
That is also true. I mean,
well, you don't like these giant arrows that point out, "Hey, he's behind you. Hey, he's behind
they come up for half a second and then get you hit."
Oh my god, I should not have called you guys.
Like that specific aspect is like your combat awareness. That overall thing was done better in the Greek games because of the fact it wasn't because of the fact that the camera wasn't in control of the player,
Yeah, you take a lot
Also-
more level bullshit damage.
in the hands of the player. It's
So,
like, yeah,
talking about it, for me, I think in the reboot they could have done something interesting with the runes, where they weren't ability on a cooldown, but abilities that integrated into combos.
Mhm.
So you have your combos, and then you can do several different combos where you use the runes at different points. So you have strong, the heavy rune and light rune, and then you can attack and use them in different combos. That would have made it interesting for me.
Or what
because
if you
Dance your magic.
Or what
Yeah.
if you recharge the runes through combat? Like the more damage you do, the fast like then you start recharging your magic. Instead of
Yeah,
it
I
just
never played
recharging automatically, your runes recharge automatically and your health recharges on checkpoint death, and all XP rewards are randomized no matter how well you play. Those three things together encourage bad play.
Hmm.
I think the kneecap. That was like compensation for the fact that the new camera just
Um,
kneecaps what you can do.
I wouldn't. I would say rather instead of saying it encourages bad play, rather it does not encourage good play, which sounds like the same thing. But really, what makes the game is that it encourages you to actually play it. And when the incentive is not there, you will not. And just yesterday, because I replayed the first game for the stream, I after over 10 years, and I was so out of the game, and I'm so pampered by newer games that have much more fluent combat, which just already starts with the Bayonetta series. Compared to that, God of War is clunky and slow and a bit off the design, because they hadn't figured some of these things out yet. Because the timing was off, and you had these big pauses that just invited enemies to hit you, and Kratos couldn't do anything defensive during that. But I was not back into that yet. Used to that again, and I was at the section where you push up the cage with the sacrifice, and you have these new enemies spawning that auto defend against horizontal attacks. And I had real trouble with that. I hadn't realized, they keep on spawning. I don't have time to push up the cage. And they actually had worn me down. And I had made this stupid mistake of running back with barely any health left to check, did I have a chest left to heal up? There was none. The game did another check save. I got back in, died, and was respawned with 5% health. And I feared, have I soft-locked the game now? Instead, what happened was that all of a sudden, concentration went up.
Yes.
And without getting hit once, and 4 enemies already spawned to begin with, I just got through the area in one go.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, I can't get out of this. I don't want to restart the game from the beginning just because of this nonsense. All I need to do is play good.
I just need to play
And
well.
I did,
Yeah.
and it worked.
Yeah, absolutely. This, God, I respect that so much. And you said that there's a difference between the game encouraging bad play and the game not encouraging good play, and I do agree. But when in I think God of War Ragnarok definitely addressed this a lot with its balance changes. But in 2018, there's no reason not to just run into a fight and just use all your runic attacks, cycle through. Here's all my axe runic attacks. Here's all my blade runic attacks. Spam the runic attack of Atreus, because you have it. You have it all, and you just spend all your resources and auto kill 50% of the room, and then just clean up the rest. And that's bad play. And that's what feels like it is encouraged by the systems of the game. It feels like you're encouraged to just treat every single fight the same exact way.
Yeah.
That's how I felt in the boss fight when you said like, "Hey, I feel stuck, but if I just play well and I'll get my stuff back." That's how I felt in the Ares boss fight when I first played the game, because I know, like, when I was like, I'm about to die, maybe I should just let him kill me. But you notice that if you go through it and you do a combo and you damage him, he'll drop health. So I was just like, I just got to focus, and that's exactly what I did. I just focused, and I played better, and I got that health, and I was back in it, and I felt good, and that was like what made going through that the first time just so great. And
it makes you a better player, and then you take those skills into your replay on a higher difficulty.
There's something I want to ask about that, because there's some weird effect I've had throughout my life with games that I replayed after a long time, and sometimes even on the second playthrough, where and in part this here's some things where, due to this being the collection edition that I played, and the first time I played it was the actual release edition of God of War. But when I play a game again, the first time everything goes smooth. The first time I played God of War 1, the only place I really died was in the spike room, because that is misdesigned.
What spike room?
You notice where you have to get the box out of the cage, and there's spikes in the room, and once you get the box out, you have a timer, and the spikes insta-kill you. You have to get the box out around the corner.
How is that misdesigned, though? You just got to get the box there and then get across.
Yeah,
it is cheap, though.
The problem is that, the timer is a fraction too tight, while the jump from the box to the ledge is a bit off.
I would.
That's why people keep dying in that room for no good reason.
If I can say something quick, I am gonna have to head out now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we're going to be talking about the other two games tomorrow anyway, so I think...
so feel free to finish your part of the conversation, but I'm going to be heading out.
Yeah, well, we got a super chat, and we got a 3-month subscriber.
I didn't get to my point.
Okay.
Go for it. Please continue.
Sorry.
Wait. Before you get to the point, I also have to head out.
Okay.
Oh, that's a pity. Have a good time.
See you.
Have a good time. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. So it's just that the one room is just special. But other than that, not even at the other places where people complained about, I got through without even dying once, so I didn't even know what people complained about, those sections. On the second playthrough, I had so many troubles, probably because I played more sloppy, because I had played the game before. And I was wondering, why does this game that I played through before suddenly become harder, although it's the same difficulty?
All right. Well, according to Threadnot, who gave us a little super chat, thank you, sir, telling us basically Whisp unlocked Mastered Ultra Instinct. I don't know if that's true.
Not really. I wouldn't say it for that section. If you want to give me that compliment,
just take.
You need to play. Yeah, but really, you need to play Bayonetta 2, the Baldur boss fight on Infinite Ultimate Climax.
Oh, yeah.
It took me 673 tries.
Some Devil May Cry boss. Like, Smud, did you want to ask the last two questions to Mayo?
Sorry.
The ones I wanted to ask, you kind of answered like throughout other questions, so I was like, all right, I don't really have to ask them because you went into detail anyway.
Oh, we can keep it short. I know that you guys want to wrap it up, so sure. Yeah, rapid fire. Let's go.
Oh, all the questions? Well, if you
want.
want.
No, the last two, right? The last two?
Or something, yeah.
Oh, geez, let me go through them. No, I think I got through all of them I wanted to. And the last one you guys kept talking about between the two games, then Whisp got in there. So I think we were okay.
Well, you asked about the, how did you feel about Kratos' story? Or like his character development?
Yeah, that's true. But it was more or less, did it have character development? Did it have resolution?
I feel that God of War 2 was a step in the wrong direction and contributed to the idea that Kratos is just an angry man. I think God of War 1's presentation of the Kratos character is far deeper. You see a much more emotional side of this man who is tired and sad and just wants to get out of his situation, just wants to forget. And then games 2 and 3 is revenge, which is fun. I love those games. I love that adventure. But I think that they made the character a lot simpler to the general public.
Yeah, the prequels definitely were done, or like partially done, I think, to address that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Ghost
The
of
prequels
Sparta,
handle him better.
They just add a lot more. But I think it retroactively helps them too, because then it's like you understand why he's just so over it, and it's just like he just chooses to become a giant middle finger to the gods, and just by
Well,
the
I
end
mean,
of,
it's because they what's the word? Retro. I can't remember the word. Retconned. Because at the end of God of War 1, the way it ends is that Kratos became the god of war and watched over all humanity for the rest of human history. And it shows clips of like World War
Yeah.
1 and stuff like that.
yeah,
And then God of War 2, Kratos is like, fuck this shit. I'm going to be a dick.
I'm not
And
God
Zeus
of
is
War
like, stop
anymore.
being a dick. And he's like, don't tell me to stop being a dick. And so, and that's where I
It
think
worked
the
as a
misstep
closed
happened.
story. It worked as a closed story. If you retcon off that real life history ending and continue with his quest, he has a reason, because he didn't ask to be the god of war. That's not what.
Right.
That's something amazing. We make you a god.
Yeah.
But Kratos thinks, all I wanted was my PTSD flashbacks to go away.
Yeah, exactly. And
I didn't want to be a god. Now I'm a god and I have my PTSD flashbacks.
Yeah. And I
Fuck
get
you.
it. I guess I wish they had
That
developed
is
it
it.
better
Yeah.
in the sequels.
Well, I think the prequels go a long way of helping that, but yeah, at the time, I really like how 3 plays out though, even with that. Oh wait, what do you think of? Because I guess the prequels in general are just a conversation for another stream too.
Sure.
But like, what do you think of Ascension?
Ascension is a game I haven't played in 10 years, and so it's really hard for
Oh.
me to say. However, what I remember is liking the combat of it more
Yes.
than any other God of War game.
Yes, I think I am the massive outlier. I only recently played through the whole Greek stuff,
Yeah.
like a year and a half ago, and I did Ascension last because that was my mindset was, oh, just go in release order.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Ascension came out. I came away from all of them being with like Ascension as my second favorite.
Yeah, it came out, and I think it's a case of people just being tired of the series at that point, and 2, the story just not being nearly as compelling as what was happening in the core
They were really
games.
scraping the bottom of it.
But
Yeah.
the gameplay itself, the combat mechanics, wow! I can't wait to revisit that game because I remember liking it a lot more.
I just like I came away of just like they tried something new with the combat, and it's just I came away with they seem to try to actively make it more like Devil May Cry,
It's great.
but in a good way. And they actually managed, because you only have one. Because I was trying to bring up when the talking about the multiple weapons, you only have the Blades of Chaos in that game. But what they do is that you have all these different elemental types that you can change the blades to, and all the combos do different things. So you have
really cool.
You actually have more variation. And then they do other stuff with like the magic, and it's just like there's something new with the grapple moves as well. And it's just like I came away with like, man, if only the Norse games changed the combat the way this game did, and I might have.
That's the right integration of magic into the weapons.
Yeah, it's just like I found the combat was just so more improved, and they even did. Yeah, that I don't know. I could gush about Ascension a lot.
Yeah, I wish I could share it with you, but it's just been too long for me to be able to talk in detail. I just have the memories.
I just say that because Ascension is like most people are like, eh.
No, it's like it's a weaker entry in the series that does certain things way better, but it does other things that most people care about far worse.
Yeah.
And so that's why it gets remembered as not good when really it's just not as good, but it's not like it's a bad game.
No, not at all.
All right. Well, that was over 2 hours. We have one more question from our Vladimir Dragunov character, who's been on sub for a few months or a few dozen months right now. But he always asks a question that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So, greetings, and here's your reminder that Stalker 2 is close to release. Who's playing? Okay. I don't know who's playing this game, but if it's anything to do with the story it's based off, which is, I think, Roadside Picnic.
Yes.
then I will definitely check it out. So,
I still I have too much unplayed stuff on the list still.
yeah.
Oh god.
Has everyone here played Stalker 1?
I have not.
Only
it's
friends of mine.
Been a while, yeah. I'm trying to remember that game.
I
haven't
not
played
it.
shooters in years.
I haven't played it. I'm going to go into Stalker 2 as someone who's never played Stalker 1, and I'm going to review it from that perspective, because I think that's a fun way to approach YouTube videos.
Final question from me. Button mashing to open doors.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an open question?
Well,
Yes.
if you lift...
Does it have to apply to only doors? Because we just talked about
Well, it's the
God of War.
there
You
are
open chests like that.
any
well,
deadlift action.
that's at least just hold.
yeah, any,
But
Yeah,
the
that's true.
standard every door in God of War opens by you have to mash the trigger button or the other button, and it's excruciating. Drives me nuts.
I like it.
It's for certain doors where it brought this example up before. You remember the hardest trial in the first game with the boulders coming at you.
Uh-huh.
You have the side doors and it's tense and
Uh-huh.
oh god, go open.
Yeah.
That fits.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that thing. Yeah.
But every bloody gate in front of you on your normal path, please
well,
no.
whenever you go to the gym, every deadlift is going to kill you anyway. So that's the
Every
exact
lift.
that's the exact feeling that goes through your mind whenever you lift a freaking door the size of your skull. It's 5 times as thick.
Every
Like-
lift is a button mash.
like most things, context matters.
Yeah.
I love in God of War 2 and the Colossus breaks in the wall and tries to step on you, and Kratos catches his foot, and you're like, mash, get the fuck
Yeah.
off me, and then you push him away. That's cool. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
I don't think that you should use
Oh.
it all the time.
Like in the tug of war with Hades, and
Sure.
that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Those moments I think are cool
Mm.
where it's I feel like I'm as stressed as the player as the character is in this moment. I think that's a pretty decent way to use it.
Yeah. What's your recommendation for the perfect game that did QTEs?
I mean, it's God of War, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Oh, don't.
I have one for you.
Don't. No, Whisp. Come on.
Don't go
I
down
must.
this
I must.
I mean, you get the reward. Okay, you get rewards for completing them, right? You don't have to use them.
That
you
they
don't have
feel
to
right.
kill the enemies.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, the Medusa head pull with the two swirls on the stick. Perfect. You
That's
get
a
the
good
magic
one.
for it.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
What I
always
didn't like were the randomized buttons for the Cyclopses.
Oh, I don't mind those at all.
Oh, I could go on a
But-
rant about RE4 with that.
But yeah, no, for your list, and you probably need an emulator at this point. Try to get a hold of Asura's Wrath. And
So many people have recommended that to me.
yeah, you need to play it yourself. And after that game, since that game came out, no game has an excuse to do lame or annoying QTEs.
Okay, cool.
And you will understand that once you've played it.
All right. There's the 4th Asura's Wrath plug for this video.
Oh, is it only 4? I lost count.
Yeah,
What?
20 minutes at least.
No, you're mixing that up with yesterday.
Oh, God. All right.
Oh, I have a final question.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Top. Okay, maybe not top 5, but favorite boss.
Out of the first 3 games?
No, favorite. Yeah, favorite boss of the Greek games.
Okay.
God, that's tough. That was really tough.
I was going to say Perseus because I liked the invisibility.
Perseus is good. Perseus is fun. I think I have to say Ares because of what it means. Because of that center section where you fight off your own guilt by fighting clone doppelgangers of yourself, and you hug your family to recharge to give your health to them. I mean, that's beautiful. What a beautiful character moment integrated into the gameplay of a boss fight. That wins for me. I know there are things that are unbalanced and cheap about the fight. I'm not saying there aren't, but that moment alone makes that fight the best for me. I also really like the Sisters of Fate.
Yeah, my favorites would be my top 3 would be Ares, just because it was such a great climax, like the whole
Yeah.
thing. And then
You
my
hated
second,
him. You hated him when you finally got to him.
And then you're doing that button mash with on like where you get the sword, that final part. It's like yeah, like, and then my second favorite is Hades, because Hades was just so fun and creepy. And then I think my third favorite is Hercules, because that was just because it's one, because I love the whole build up to it. Like that whole opening cutscene is just great, with like the interaction between the two and the camera work. And then like it's actually like pretty fun, with like one of the fun boss fights that uses minions in there, because and then like just how it's like a fisticuffs fight.
Yeah.
And then you get the best, like the Nemean Cestus, which is just a fun weapon.
All right. Well, that was a lot of my questions, a lot of your questions, a lot of just talking for a good half hour about stuff not directly related to the Greek games, but also games of the same genre. We didn't even talk about Devil May Cry, amazingly. I was impressed. So
I can say one more thing about the camera, or another way to solve that. Because especially the first game, a bit as unpolished and slightly experimental as it is, its camera loves, despite being on rails, to get objects into the way so that you don't see what the hell is going on for the battle. That is horrible. And but I think Bayonetta and with that DMC kind of found a middle ground where you have the camera on rails that gives you the cinematic view of a level, but you also have the character focused one. And depending on what is going on, you get one or the other. And it tends to snap back to where the developers wanted to go so that you have the right cinematic view or scenic view. If you needed some realignment or reorientation. And since God of War didn't have a move the camera option in any way, it led to these little problems. I did like the idea that you had a directional dodge roll, but I think it's surprisingly enough easier done with multiple fingers and having a free camera instead. Because I find it's because the thing is, the dodge roll you have on the thumb, with which you use all your attack buttons. Mm-hmm. So you have to switch off of your attack buttons. But in other games, like the DMC Bayonetta, you have the dodge on the trigger, and you have your movement on the left side anyway. So you have the directional dodge anyway, but you are still on your attack buttons.
What I like that about God of War, because if you're dodging, you're not attacking. So you don't need your thumb for any attack buttons because you're dodging. So you use that for dodge.
I can see the argument. If only Kratos would roll through enemies.
All right. Well, that was our Greek God of War Smudtalk. We're going to be having tomorrow the 2018 and the Ragnarok Smudtalk on God of War. Some people from today will also be coming in tomorrow, and some new ones you haven't seen yet. So thank you guys for all your time, all your questions, all your input, and hopefully we'll have just as much a meaty discussion as we did today. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. Have yourself a good one. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Bye.